I'm your presenter, Alex.
Hi, I'm Zoe, and this is the author of the book Socifesto.
And I am Bobski, and I will be your narrator.
Welcome to the Socifesto videocast, where we dive deep into innovative ideas that challenge the status quo. I'm Alex.
And I'm Zoe. Today, we're exploring a radical concept that could transform how we think about work and productivity, the 18-hour workweek. We're joined by Bobski, the visionary behind this idea, and the book Socifesto, the ultimate socialist manifesto. Welcome.
Thank you, girls. It's great to be here.
Let's start at the beginning. Bobski, what exactly is the 18-hour workweek, and what inspired you to propose this idea?
The 18-hour maximum working week. If we are to obtain our brave new world, then we must cut the legal working hours of employees in this country and set its limit to 18 hours per week. Researchers suggest that someone who is always drawing on their creative abilities can only be productive for more than 6 hours. We have empirical evidence of working a 3-day week and the measure of the effect on productivity at national level. On the 1st of January 1974, Prime Minister Ted Heath imposed a 3-day week due to an energy supply shortage. Employers were not allowed to use more than 3 days' electricity until reserves were re-established. The experts suggested that the industrial production will plummet by 50%, and Conservative grandee Francis Pryor feared a catastrophe. Once the dispute was over and the calculations were produced, they found that losing 40 to 50% of the working week created a loss of just 6%. Some 50 years earlier, Henry Ford, when he introduced the 5-day, 40-hour week, increased productivity as a consequence of this same philosophy. This idea of cutting the working week to support decent quality of life has been enacted by Germany's Radical Industrial Union of IG Metals, Europe's largest trade union, who have reduced the working week for 4 million workers. Something unthinkable to most Western countries' industrialists, whose workforce is working more for less, as the psychological idea of recession allows managers to exploit their workers. But this policy will never be cost-effective to its participants if it's not introduced in conjunction with basic income, as the income levels of individuals will need to be supported.
It sounds quite revolutionary. What do you see as the main benefits of this approach for the average worker?
Actually, Zoe, that's something really interesting and quite simple to answer. It will give you freedom and happiness, something that we don't suffer, it seems, currently. If we journey back to the last century, when economics and philosophers contemplated the future with technology in our society, the notion of reducing the working week became a subject of quite vigorous debate. In the 1930s, a very famous economist called John Maynard Keynes, in a seminal work called Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren, predicted an era where humanity will grapple with the unprecedented challenge of what to do with all the surplus leisure time we would have because of this technology. Hard to believe nowadays, isn't it? He envisioned a future where the living standards would be 4 times higher and the average person would only need to work a mere 15 hours per week by 2030, 6 years' time. How disappointed would he be if he was still alive?
Shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the bigger picture. How do you envision this impacting the economy and society as a whole?
The repercussions of introducing an 18-hour week cannot be underestimated. Such things as stress levels will be reduced for the entire workforce. Well, it sounds quite good, but when you see that it costs the NHS something like £11 billion a year to treat people with stress, suddenly we get massive savings to the health service. For employers, sick absenteeism, which is the main problem and a cause of lack of profit, reduces by £28 billion a year. It is massive, massive savings. So not only do we have happy workforce, we have such a happy workforce, they're quite willing to go to work and sick absence disappears. But the main, biggest and most substantial gain is in productivity. If you're happy, you work to your maximum capacity. For years, we've been told that the productivity in Britain has been low. This will transform Britain into a new, modern, fast economy. And we can now estimate that an 18-hour week will increase productivity by a massive £424.5 billion. The savings we will have just reducing the working hours to 18 a week is incredible. We will double productivity in this country overnight and give people the chance to have a much better work-home balanced life.
That's intriguing. But what challenges might we face in implementing such a system, especially in sectors where long hours are the norm?
The 18-hour working week will increase job opportunity. Normally, one job would be 37.5-hour week, where now, or employers will now need to employ two people. That will change the relationship between employer and employee. Currently, the circumstances is that the employer is gifting a job to someone and treating the employee in a very negative, bad way, as in, we're doing you a favour. The 18-hour week will change that. The employee will be doing the company a favour for being there because they need not one, but two people working to fulfill that job if that company is to continue making that sort of profit. This would naturally then increase the hourly rate because they want to attract the better people for that job, which again is a good positive thing for the employee. Working conditions will improve, holidays will increase, flexibility will come into the workplace. These are all positive things on the 18-hour week. Employers will have to change their attitude towards the employee. But on the other side, we must make sure that the companies can afford to take two people on rather than one. We don't expect companies to pay twice as much money out for that job. And this is where basic income comes in. Basic income is something we will discuss later, but it's a central part of the 18-hour week, which will make the companies more profitable so they will actually welcome the 18-hour week.
Have there been any trials or places where a similar model has been tested? What were the results?
There's been very limited pilot projects. No country has ever grasped the nettle and proceeded to actually implement this as a national policy, sadly. But even here in Britain, we've done pilot schemes. Even quite recently, back in 2022, 61 companies had nearly 3,000 workers working a 4-day week as a pilot to see if it worked, to see if employers thought it feasible. Now, what you must remember from the pilot scheme is that the government didn't pay the difference, which we're suggesting here with the 18-hour week. They was asking for companies just to pilot it, and they paid the full compensation package for it. So they were working 4 days a week, and the companies were paying 5 days a week. And one would imagine once the pilot scheme was finished, that everybody would say, "Thank you very much, cost me too much," and we'll go home. But that's not the case. Of the pilots, of the 61 participating companies, 56, 92% of them continued with the 4-day week, confirming that the policy would now become permanent. It works even without compensation. And of course, the employees loved it. 62% reported that it was a great balance between work and life and care responsibilities, which is a growing problem with our aging society. It's something that I haven't really illustrated in my book, but there is so many positive aspects of the 18-hour week, it's almost impossible to actually list them in full.
Looking forward, how do you see this idea evolving? Do you think it's feasible on a global scale?
Like many crazy ideas in history, what we find is people try them, find them successful, and they get imitated elsewhere throughout the globe. We now are quite happy with a 40-hour week. We didn't put the 40-hour week in, America did. America done it through the Ford Motor Company. We saw it was successful. We saw the productivity of the car manufacturing was greater than ours, and so we duplicated it. And that's what happens with good ideas. People see it in action, understand the benefits, and they copy. And I think once we've succeeded with the 18-hour week, everybody will follow suit.
Fascinating discussion. If our listeners want to learn more about the 18-hour workweek or get involved, where should they go?
Details of the 18-hour working week with all the other associated policies are in my book, Socifesto, which is available on Amazon, or more interesting, as a digital flip book from my website, which will come up at the end of the video.
Thank you, Bobski, for joining us today and sharing these insights. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe on our video channel for more discussions like this. Until next time.